So is Linnea's new signature weapon, Golden Frostbound Oath, a good investment for your account or not? In this video we'll be trying to assess the value of this new weapon, especially since this weapon banner has two bows. We also have Chasca's signature weapon at the same banner. So in this video I'll be reviewing the bows, and hopefully I'll save you from making any mistakes and to get the right weapon for your specific needs for your account. If you're trying to wish for the new weapon or any other weapons in the game or characters, the best way to get your Genesis crystals is going to be throughout Topuplive. Topuplive offers top-ups for many games including Genshin impacts up to 30% cheaper than official stores. When you want to buy, you'd want to click my link in the description for the best deals. Click the offer you'd want to buy, then apply my code to get a discounted price. For Mihoyo games like Genshin, Honkai, and Zenless Zero, you'd want to use code CAM for 20% off of your purchase. And for other games on the website, you can use code Camilo for a 12% discount. And as you can see, for the $100 offer, the price went down to $80, saving you $20 on your purchase. But yeah, then you just need to fill in your user ID and region, click buy, pay, and the Genesis crystals will shortly be on your account. Topuplive also uses PCI security, which means it's 100% safe. Use the link in the description or the pinned comment to find those great deals with Topuplive. Alright, so first of all, the bow is going to have 542 base attack at level 90, which is on the very low side for a 5-star weapon. That means it's going to have a big crit damage substat, which is 88% at level 90, which is a super huge crit damage substat. Now, obviously, right off the bat, this is going to usually lower the value of the weapon a little bit. Usually, you'd want to look for something that's more balanced, where they have an average base attack, then also an average substat. Those types of weapons are usually going to be like the best value overall. But when a weapon has either super high base attack or super low base attack, it's going to be less optimal. It's not terrible, it's still a higher base attack than like most 4-star weapons, for example, but it's just less optimal in general. But yeah, moving on to the more important part, which is going to be the passive of the weapon. First of all, it's going to give you a 16% defense increase, just a flat increase by equipping this weapon. Unfortunately, defense is not really going to be a desired stat, especially for most bow characters, so this is already not a good start. And then we have when the equipping character's elemental skill or lunar crystallized attacks hit enemies, you gain the frost phase favor effects for 6 seconds. So 6 seconds is a relatively short time. That means your character needs to either be dealing lunar crystallized attacks consistently for him to refresh the duration, or they need to be able to hit enemies with their elemental skill also consistently for them to refresh the buff's duration. Because the buff's duration is only 6 seconds, so it's going to be kind of hard to maintain if your character does not deal consistent lunar crystallized attacks or just deals consistent damage with their elemental skill, which is also a big problem. Now moving on to the duration of the buff. During the buff, it's just going to give you 40% geo damage bonus and then 40% damage bonus to your lunar crystallized reactions. And then also during this duration, if there are moon drifts on the field, which are the lunar crystallized things, all your other party members are going to gain half of that effect basically, which is 20% geo damage and 20% lunar crystallized damage increase. So basically all this weapon gives you is going to be 541 base attack, 88% crit damage, 16% defense, 40% lunar crystallized reaction damage increase, and then for your team, 20% geo damage bonus and 20% lunar crystallized damage increase. Now obviously right off the bat you can see that for most of the passive at least, if your character is not geo, they're not going to benefit from this weapon almost at all, because it's just geo damage bonus basically, and then the lunar crystallized damage is also mainly for geo characters, which is a huge bummer and it limits your characters by a lot. Also, even the conditions activating the passive is going to be pretty bad. As I said before, you'll need to consistently hit with your elemental skill or be able to trigger the lunar crystallized reaction pretty consistently, so it's not even going to be easy to activate. Also, the defense increase, most bow characters are not really going to appreciate that. I think there are like 2 or 3 characters that care about defense at all. Other than that, most characters are going to scale with attack or other stats like HP or something like that, so the defense increase is not going to be that valuable. If we're talking about the characters that can work with this weapon, obviously we have Linnea. It's her signature weapon. Basically it's just going to boost her damage and her team's damage by quite a bit, but it's not a huge amount either. It's going to be a 17 to 22% damage increase depending on what weapon you had before, and honestly she has very good even like 3-star weapons, so that weapon is definitely not going to be needed for Linnea. It's definitely an upgrade for sure. I'm not saying it's going to be bad or anything like that, but it's not a huge upgrade and it's definitely not needed. It's just some extra damage on a sub DPS and like 20% damage increase to your main DPS, which is not really a lot. So yeah, it's pretty decent, but even on Linnea you do have like pretty good alternatives. I did a weapons tier list before if you want to check it out for Linnea. Now besides Linnea, the only character character that can like fully properly use this weapon is just gonna be Goru, and that's also gonna be Goru in Lunar Crystallized teams specifically, because outside of them he won't be able to have full uptime on the passive even. So Goru in Lunar Crystallized teams, whether it's with Ziba or any other Geo main DPSs, if you're playing them with like Columbina or someone like that, Goru can carry this weapon and he could give some Geo damage bonus to your main DPS or stuff like that. But then again, it's also the same thing. He already has pretty decent weapons, even like 3-star weapons. He's also pretty good with the Favonius if your team needs energy, so it's really arguable if that's even going to be like his best in slot, even though he can fully use it obviously, but especially since he doesn't really deal that much damage of his own, I don't think it's going to be his best weapon overall. It's probably an S tier weapon, but I'd say it's low S tier. So yeah, even for the only character who can fully properly use it, I don't think it's going to be the best option in most of his teams. Besides those two characters, it moves to like being a stat stick territory. Obviously it works best as a stat stick for characters that don't really care about the base attack and appreciate just a higher substat. So the best option for that is just going to be Yellen. If you need a stat stick for Yellen, she scales with HP, so she doesn't really care about the low base attack, and the super high crit is going to be pretty valuable if you're trying to build crit on her obviously. Also maybe Setos, because he also doesn't really care much about the base attack. So those are like the second tier users for this weapon. It's just characters that appreciate a super high like substat, which is crit damage, and don't care about the low base attack of this weapon. So those are probably going to be your next best users for this weapon, but unfortunately we don't have many bow characters who can do that. And then after that you can basically use it on anyone really as just like a pure stat stick, but then at this point it's just going to be competing with many other stat sticks in the game, and it won't really be a good stat stick because, as I said before, it's going to have low base attack, and most bow characters in this game are going to like that high base attack, and they're just going to scale with attack, especially characters who care about crit. So it's going to be like a bad stat stick sort of, or at least not the best. If you're getting this weapon purely as a stat stick, it's not going to be the best stat stick you can get for sure. So the final obvious conclusion for this weapon, as like a general value weapon for your, honestly I give it like a 3 out of 10. I think the value is going to be pretty bad because you cannot even use this weapon properly as a stat stick for a lot of characters, and even for the characters where it works perfectly and they can like fully utilize everything about this weapon, it's not even going to be all of that. For Linnea, it's just going to be like a slight damage increase, like a normal damage increase, and for Goru it's usable, but it's probably not going to be his best option in a lot of teams either. So the only use for this weapon is just a bad stat stick basically. So you definitely shouldn't get this weapon. A bigger reason is that, as I said before, it's rerunning against Chasca's bow. Chasca's bow is also going to be on the same banner, and that weapon, Astro Vulture's Crimson Plumage, is going to be a much better value weapon in my opinion. It's going to have much more balanced stats. It's going to have 608 base attack and 66% crit damage. That's much better in my opinion for like a general weapon. A lot of characters are going to just appreciate it more. Even characters who don't care about attack, substat is not going to be too bad, and for characters who care about the base attack is not going to be too bad. So it's pretty balanced, and that's a much better like general weapon to get in my opinion. Also the passive is much simpler and much more usable in my opinion. If you trigger a swirl, it's going to give you 24% attack, which to be fair, not many characters can do that, but then it's going to boost your charge attacks when you have 1 or 2 characters from different elements than the character equipping this weapon. So it's just a better stat stick overall, and it can be pretty good on like a lot of charge attack bow users, which by the way we do have a lot. We have Chasca, which is obviously the main user for this weapon. We have Tirneri, he can probably use this weapon pretty well. It's definitely going to be an S tier weapon for him. We have Ganyu. Ganyu is going to be a charge attacker, so she can use this weapon too. We have Setos, as I said before. If you're playing him with his charge attacks playstyle, then this weapon is going to be super good too. We have Linnea, even though it might have a slight problem with his team requirements, because you're going to need 2 pyros with Linnea, I think. So you won't be able to activate like the full passive, but it's still going to boost your charge attacks and also your elemental burst damage, by the way, but to a much lesser extent. But yeah, it's a pretty good weapon. For a lot of characters, it can just offer them that more balanced like stat stick stats. It's just going to give them that 66% crit damage, and then also increase their elemental burst damage by a little bit. And if they use charge attacks, it's going to boost their charge attacks. That's going to be a much better weapon to get in my opinion. In comparison, I give this weapon like a 6 out of 10 rating. It's not the perfect weapon obviously as a stat stick, but I do think it's much better than Linnea's weapon as like a general investment weapon for your account. So yeah, which weapon should you get? I think if you really need a 5-star bow right now and you don't have any, I would recommend getting Chasca's weapon. That's probably the better option. Linnea's weapon is for sure a skip in my opinion, unless you're getting her for Linnea specifically and you just want to invest in her, then sure. Other than that, it's definitely not good value as like a general weapon for your account. But yeah, that was the video guys. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel. See you guys in the next video. Peace.